If you grew up listening to country music in the 1990s, you already know that the decade was something special. Garth Brooks was selling out stadiums. Shania Twain was crossing over to pop radio. Tim McGraw and Faith Hill were becoming household names that went far beyond the country music world. The decade was producing some of the best-selling country albums ever made, and it felt like every week another massive hit was coming over the airwaves that the whole country seemed to know by heart. But here's the thing about the 1990s that gets lost in all of that. For every Friends in Low Places, for every Man I Feel Like a Woman, for every Don't Take the Girl, there were dozens of other songs sitting right beside them on the radio. Songs that were just as good. Songs that were written with the same care and recorded with the same craft and sung by voices that deserved just as much attention. Songs that charted, got their moment, and then somehow slipped through the cracks of popular memory while the giants of the decade kept getting replayed for the next 30 years. This video is about those songs, the ones that people of a certain age remember instantly the second they hear the opening bars, and then spend the next 30 seconds saying, "Wait, I haven't heard this in forever." The ones that younger listeners who have been digging into classic 90s country discover and immediately wonder why nobody told them about sooner. The ones that, if you really know country music from that era, you hold a little close to your chest because they feel like they belong to the people who are actually paying attention. These are the top 10 most underrated country songs of the 1990s, and we are going to take our time with each one because every single one of these songs has a story worth telling, and the people who made them deserve more than 30 seconds of airtime. Let us start at number 10. Number 10 is Small Town Saturday Night by Hal Ketchum. Released in April of 1991 as the lead single from his debut album Past the Point of Rescue on Curb Records. Now, Hal Ketchum was not a conventional country music story. He was not from the South, not from the West, not from any of the places that Nashville tends to look toward when it is searching for the next voice. He was from Greenwich, New York, about as far from the country music pipeline as you can get. He played in an R&B band as a teenager, got deep into folk music, moved to Austin in the early 1980s, and spent years absorbing that city's specific and wild musical scene. Then, eventually made his way to Nashville approaching his late 30s. By any normal industry measure, he was too old, Small Town Saturday Night, too folky and too unconventional to break through. Small Town. Saturday Night broke through. The song was written by Pat Alger and Hank DeVito, and it was based on Pat Alger's actual hometown of LaGrange, Georgia. Alger once explained that there was one movie theater in LaGrange, and they would play the latest Elvis movie there until everyone in town had seen it at least 3 times. Which is exactly where the opening line of the song comes from. Everything in it is that specific and that observed. The boredom, the restlessness, the way a Saturday night in a small town is both everything you have and not nearly enough. The characters who dream of something bigger from the front seat of a car going nowhere in particular. What Ketchum did with that song was take a story rooted in one specific Georgia town and make it feel like it belonged to every small town in America simultaneously. Saturday night is a small town Saturday. He sang it with a kind of wry affection, not condescending to small town life, not romanticizing it either, just looking at it straight and finding the humor and the longing inside it at the same time. It reached number 2 on the Billboard Hot Country chart. It should have launched a career that country music talked about for decades. Instead, Hal Ketchum became the kind of artist that the people who knew him loved fiercely, and the people who didn't know him somehow never found. He passed away in November of 2020 from complications related to dementia. He was 67 years old. If you have never heard Small Town Saturday Night, find it tonight. It will take you exactly 2 minutes and 58 seconds, and when it is over, you will wonder where it has been your whole life. At number 9, we have a song that is, by any measure, one of the most unusual number 1 singles in the history of country music. Blame It on Your Heart by Patty Loveless. Released April 3rd, 1993. First. The backstory. Because the backstory of this song is as good as the song itself. In 1992, Patty Loveless underwent corrective throat surgery to remove an enlarged blood vessel on her vocal cords. She was not allowed to speak or sing for 9 full weeks. She communicated with post-it notes and a pen. For a woman whose entire professional identity was built inside her voice, a voice that music critics had been calling one of the finest in country music since the mid-1980s. 9 weeks of silence is not just inconvenient. It is an existential crisis. You lie in bed at 3 in the morning, wondering whether what comes back will be the same thing that went in. What came back was actually better. Her voice returned with a deeper, fuller quality that it had not possessed before the surgery. And the first song she recorded with that new voice, the first single from her first post-surgery album, was Blame It on Your Heart, written by 2 of the finest craftsmen Nashville has ever produced. Harlan Howard and a Greek-born songwriter named Kostas Lazaridis. Kostas wrote the core idea after staying up all night at a party and arriving at their writing session at a hotel on Demon Brown Street in Nashville at 9:30 in the morning on no sleep. Which is exactly the kind of condition that sometimes produces the most reckless and magnificent things. The concept, a kiss-off song where the narrator blames her lying, cheating partner's own heart for what it did, sounds simple until you hear the chorus, which unspools one of the longest and most satisfying strings of adjectives in country music history. Lying, cheating, cold, deadbeating, two-timing, double-dealing, mean, mistreating, loving heart. Patty Loveless's team initially called it a ditty and rejected it. Kostas's response, later recounted publicly, was essentially, "If this is a ditty, I don't know what this town is made of." He wasn't wrong. The song went to number 1. It spent 20 weeks on the chart. It became one of Patty Loveless's signature pieces and one of the reasons she was eventually selected for the Country Music Hall of Fame. And she almost didn't record it. That is country music. Someone almost always doesn't record the song that defines them. And then they do, and 30 years later, you realize you cannot imagine the decade without it. Coming in at number 8 is a song from a man who country music lost far too soon. And whose name deserves to be spoken alongside the great traditional country voices of his generation without any hesitation.
6 a.m. Tell me she
Daryl Singletary, I Let Her Lie, released July 17th, 1995.
I let her lie.
Daryl Singletary was born in Cairo, Georgia in 1971 and grew up the kind of hard Georgia country that produces voices like his. Deep and direct and absolutely uninterested in the slick production gloss that was beginning to creep into Nashville by the mid-90s.
I let her lie.
He had a voice that sounded like it had been aged in an oak barrel for 20 years.
Was too hard to handle and I couldn't bear.
Randy Travis, who had spent the 1980s holding the line for traditional country against the pop crossover tide, heard Singletary early in his career and co-produced his debut album for Giant Records. That tells you everything you need to know about where Singletary sat in the
One teary night, she confessed her
tradition. I Let Her Lie was written by Tim Johnson,
to never cheat again. I let her lie.
and it is a song about one of the most quietly devastating decisions a person can make in a relationship. The decision to know the truth and choose not to name it. The man in the song has figured out that his woman has been lying to him.
She could not change, and I only have myself.
He knows it in the specific bone-deep way that people know things they have been pretending not to know for a while, and he decides to let her keep lying, because the truth is too hard to handle, because losing her is worse than living inside the fiction she has built.
The truth, was too hard to handle, and
It peaked at number 2 on the Billboard Hot Country chart. It was the biggest commercial moment of his career.
you were that small town scandal, but she was.
And it positioned him as one of the most promising traditional country voices of the decade. The career that followed did not reach the heights that voice deserved. Singletary kept making music, kept touring, kept building a loyal audience that loved his stone-cold traditional sound even as Nashville moved further and further away from it. He once said in an interview that has stayed with people who heard it, "I didn't tell anyone I wanted to be on the radio every day. I said I want to make a living playing for the people who enjoy my kind of music." And he did. For 23 years after that debut album, he got up and went and played for the people. Darrell Singletary died on February 12, 2018 at his home in Lebanon, Tennessee. He was 46 years old. He died without warning, with no public health struggle preceding it, just there one day and gone the next. Let Her Lie is a song most people will always associate with him. But if you go back and spend a day with his catalog, you will find that it is only the surface of something much deeper. At number 7, we have a song that is not underrated in the traditional sense. It was a number 1. It won awards. It had a music video. People know it. But it has been criminally underremembered in the conversation about what the 1990s actually produced. And that is worth correcting. Time Marches On by Tracy Lawrence, released March 18th, 1996. The song was written by Bobby Braddock. You may know Bobby Braddock from a song he co-wrote called He Stopped Loving Her Today, which is only the most celebrated country song of the last half century. When Bobby Braddock hands you a song, you are not holding an ordinary piece of material. You're holding something that has been through the mind of a man who understands what country music is capable of at its absolute finest. Time Marches On follows a family across the feel arc of a life. First verse, the kids are babies, the parents are young, dad's drinking a beer listening to the radio. Mom is learning to sew. The world is new. Second verse, the teenagers arrive and everything that can go wrong in a family starts going quietly wrong. Third verse, they're all getting old. Sister's a grandmother. Brothers watching his cholesterol. Mama's out of touch. Daddy's in the ground beneath the maple tree. As the angels sing an old Hank Williams song. Tracy Lawrence has said publicly that he considers it the best lyrics of any song he ever recorded. He called it a work of art. He said of Braddock, to be able to articulate that and paint those colors so vividly with words, that's a true craftsman right there. Here's the remarkable thing about Time Marches On. After its initial run at the top of the country charts in 1996, where it sat for 3 weeks and earned CMA nominations for Single of the Year and Song of the Year, it went quiet for a while, the way a lot of 90s country songs go quiet. And then something unexpected happened. A new generation found it on streaming platforms and on social media. It currently has over 180 million plays on Spotify. Not because of a campaign, not because of a reissue or a documentary or a celebrity endorsement, because people kept sharing it. Because someone would put it on at a family gathering and somebody's grandmother would go quiet and somebody else would ask what song that was and they would look it up and play it again. That is the mark of a song that is larger than the era that produced it. Bobby Braddock wrote the whole truth about what a life looks like when you play it all the way through. And Tracy Lawrence delivered it in 3 minutes and 3 seconds like a man who understood exactly what he was holding. Number 6 belongs to a woman who spent a decade and a half making some of the finest music to come out of Nashville and never quite received the full recognition she deserved from the mainstream country audience. Mary Chapin Carpenter. He thinks he'll keep her. Released 1992 from her album Come On, Come On. Mary Chapin Carpenter was a different kind of country artist. She came from Princeton, New Jersey, educated and literary and folk influenced, and she brought to Nashville a specific intelligence and a specific emotional precision that the genre was not always entirely sure what to do with. She won 4 consecutive Grammy Awards for Best Female Country Vocal Performance between 1992 and 1995. 4 consecutive years. Only Reba McEntire's 4 consecutive CMA female vocalist wins compares to that kind of sustained recognition from the people who vote on these things. He Thinks He'll Keep Her is the song that cracked open something important. Named after the old Geritol commercials, the ones where the husband, assessing his perfectly maintained wife, would say with satisfied confidence, "I'll keep her." The song tells the story of 15 years of a woman's life inside a marriage where she was never fully seen. She raised the children, she kept the house, she drove the carpool, she typed his letters, and at 36 years old, with the children in school and her husband off to work, she walked out of the house and didn't go back. The song goes somewhere that country music in 1992 was not always comfortable going. It does not make the husband a villain. It does not make the wife a victim in the showy sense. It just describes what happened with a plain, devastating accuracy. The kind of song that women of a certain generation heard and felt recognized by in a way that very few songs had bothered to recognize them before. It reached number 2 on the country chart. It crossed over to the pop chart. And it has faded from the regular rotation of 90s country nostalgia playlists in a way that seems genuinely wrong, because the story it tells has not aged a day. At number 5, we are going back to one of the great storytelling voices, country music produced in the 1990s. A man who made records that felt like short films rather than radio singles, John Michael Montgomery. Sold.
Where I saw something I just had to have.
Released 1995 from his album, John Michael Montgomery. Montgomery had already established himself by the time Sold came out. I Swear had been a massive crossover hit in 1994. Reaching number 1 on both the country and pop charts and eventually becoming the best-selling country single of that year. He was legitimately famous. So why does Sold get overlooked? Because it is a different kind of song than the ones people associate with him, and it asks something different of its listeners than a big love ballad does. Sold is an auction song. The narrator is the auctioneer, working his way through a farm sale. All the equipment, the land, everything a family built over generations going to the highest bidder, one piece at a time. And somewhere in the middle of calling bids on a tractor, he watches an old farmer sit in a folding chair and hold himself together while the life he built gets dispersed in an afternoon. The detail in that song is precise enough to be uncomfortable. The auctioneer names the equipment like he knows it. Because auctioneers do know it, they have to know what they are selling. And the farmer's presence in the song, barely spoken of but always there, carries the weight of something that words around it can only approach from the side. Montgomery sang it with the specific understated quality that a song like that requires. No vocal pyrotechnics, no emotional telegraphing, just the plain telling of a thing that happened on a Tuesday afternoon in a field somewhere in rural America that nobody except the people who were there would ever know about. And he made you feel like you were there. Coming in at number 4 is a song that deserves to be mentioned every single time people talk about what the 1990s produced for women in country music. Pam Tillis, Cleopatra, Queen of Denial, 1992. Pam Tillis spent years in Nashville's shadow. The daughter of Mel Tillis, a country music legend in his own right, which meant she was always going to be compared to somebody else's story before she got to tell her own. She had been in Nashville since the early 1980s, writing songs for other people, releasing albums that did not quite break through, building towards something that kept not quite arriving. And then she made Cleopatra, Queen of Denial. Written by Pam Tillis and Bob DiPiero, the song is one of the most purely fun country songs of its entire decade. It is a song about a woman who knows her relationship is over, who has all the information, who can see exactly what is happening, and is choosing, with full awareness, to be in denial about it anyway. She calls herself Cleopatra, Queen of Denial. Queen of Denial. The pun is so good and so perfectly deployed that it almost hides how sharp the emotional observation underneath it actually is. The song hit number 3 on the country chart. It was one of the defining singles of her career, and it sits in a long list of Pam Tillis recordings from that decade. Maybe it was Memphis, Mi Vida Loca, Spilled Perfume, that together make the case for her as one of the most consistently excellent and consistently under-recognized female artists. Country music produced in the 1990s. If she had been born 10 years earlier, or released those records in a slightly less crowded field, Pam Tillis would be mentioned in the same breath as every woman who came before her that people lionize now. She deserves it. She always did. At number 3, we have one of the great album cuts of the entire decade. A song that was not released as a single in the traditional sense, but which found its audience anyway and has never fully let them go. Doug Stone. Why didn't I think of that? 1994. Doug Stone had a voice that sat somewhere between George Jones and Conway Twitty. That rich, unhurried Georgia baritone that sounds like it was made specifically for songs about ordinary life and quiet heartbreak and the particular dignity of people who are not looking for anybody's sympathy. He had a run of strong singles in the early 1990s. I'd Be Better Off in a Pine Box. In a Different Light.
Never leave it dry in the room.
Too Busy, Being in Love. These were solid, serious country records. Why Didn't I Think of That is the one that people who love his catalog always bring up first. It is a song about the small domestic rituals of a relationship. Washing dishes, making the bed, the particular ordinary textures of two people sharing a life, and how those small things become unbearable once the person is gone. The narrator moves through his empty house and keeps arriving at things she used to do, things he never thought about while she was doing them, and the refrain is just the title. Why didn't I think of that? Why didn't I notice? Why didn't I understand what I had while I was inside it? There is not a person alive who has loved someone and lost them who cannot find themselves somewhere in that song. And Doug Stone sang it with the specific restraint that great sad songs require. Because the moment you oversell grief, you lose it. He never oversold it. He just told the truth about a man standing in a quiet house wondering where the time went. At number 2, we have a song from one of the most gifted songwriting minds country music has ever employed.
I see it so clearly, you know.
A man who wrote records that people described as perfect at the time, and then somehow let drift to the back of the 90s conversation. Kevin Sharp, Nobody Knows, 1996. Kevin Sharp's story is one of the most remarkable in all of 90s country music, and it is a story that most people who listen to this kind of music have never fully heard. In 1992, Sharp was 21 years old and had just signed a development deal with David Foster's label when he was diagnosed with Ewing sarcoma, a rare and aggressive bone cancer. He underwent treatment. He survived. And while he was recovering, still in his hospital bed, David Foster brought in artists to visit and encourage him. One of those artists was Brandy, who sang to him during his recovery. That visit was the basis for the song Nobody Knows, but not the hit version you may be thinking of. Sharp took the title and the emotional core from that experience and built a different song around it entirely. Nobody Knows, written by Mark Beeson and Anthony Smith, is a song about loving someone from a distance, about the specific, hopeless, private nature of caring for someone who does not know you care. It is a song about interior life, the feelings that never get spoken, because the conditions for speaking them never arrive. Sharp sang it with a voice that had weight in it, the weight of someone who had been close enough to the end to know the difference between things that matter and things that don't. It went to number 1 on the country chart. It crossed over to the adult contemporary chart. It was one of the defining singles of 1996. And Kevin Sharp, who should have had a decade of hits in front of him, made only a handful of albums before cancer returned and took him in 2014 at the age of 43. Nobody Knows is a song that sounds like it cost something to make, because it did. And we arrive at number 1. The most underrated country song of the 1990s in the opinion of this channel and in the memory of a generation of country music fans who have never stopped loving it, is a song that reached number 1, won awards, and still somehow managed to get less than its full due in the decades that followed. Pirates in the Mississippi, Band of the Black Hand, released 1992. Wait, come back, stay with me. Because this is exactly the kind of band and the kind of song that this list exists to talk about. Pirates in the Mississippi were a band out of Columbus, Ohio, fronted by a man named Rich Fagan, and they made records that sat at the exact crossroads of traditional country and swamp rock in a way that nobody else in Nashville in the early 1990s was doing. Their sound had the density and the heat of southern rock, but the storytelling and the emotional directness of country music, and Band of the Black Hand, written by Richard Fagan and Don Cook, was the song that should have made them household names. It is a song about men who work with their hands, about the pride and the danger and the specific solidarity of physical labor, The kind where you rely on the person next to you to not make a mistake, because mistakes in that environment have consequences that no amount of paperwork can fix. The Black Hand is a term used for the union of workers, the men who show up every day and do what needs doing and go home and don't ask for recognition for it. The band reached number 3 with this song. They had a few other strong charting singles, and then, like so many bands who did not fit easily into the image-driven landscape of mid-90s country, they faded. But here's the thing, the people who loved Pirates in the Mississippi have never stopped loving them. You find them in comment sections on old YouTube videos at 2 in the morning, leaving messages that say things like, "I've been looking for this song for 20 years," or "My daddy used to play this in the truck on the way to the job site," or "Why doesn't anyone remember this band?" That is the specific, irreplaceable value of great country music that did not quite make it into the permanent rotation. It lives in the people who found it, carried by them through the years, waiting for the moment when someone else asks the right question and the song gets played again. These 10 songs are that moment, every single one of them. If this video sent you back to one of these songs, if you pulled up a playlist somewhere and found one of these artists and spent an evening with it, the way it deserves to be spent, then leave a comment and tell us which one it was. Tell us which song you grew up with and thought you were the only one who remembered. Tell us which one you had never heard before today and are now wondering where it has been your whole life. Because the 1990s gave country music some of the greatest songs this genre has ever produced. And the ones on the main playlist are only part of the story. These songs are the rest of it. Thank you for watching, and as always, keep it country.